Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, a little bit different. Doing a very short and sweet interview with Larry Zerner from Friday the 13th, Part 3, now copyright lawyer. There's been a lot of questions about Jason Universe. What can they do? What can't they do? What does this Striker Entertainment deal mean? You know, and then also in recent news, Summer Camp with this new ASIM game that's paying homage to F-13, very close to the look and feel and game design that we know from F-13. How much can they do without getting in trouble? You know, legally, what's possible for them? I wanted Larry to kind of clarify some things there. Short and sweet. Didn't want to waste a bunch of Larry's time because he is a busy guy and he took a random Friday afternoon to sit down with me in the middle of work to do this for you guys. So if you're not already following Larry on all platforms, do so. You have at Zerner Law or at Larry Zerner. Links in the description below. But there you go. With that out of the way, enjoy this interview.
Okay, well, I'm, I was Shelley in Friday the 13th Part 3. And after conquering Hollywood, I gave it all up and became an entertainment lawyer. And now I've been an entertainment lawyer for 34 years. And specialize in copyright and trademark issues, especially involving horror movies.
Yeah, and that
represent a number of horror movie franchises and actors and directors.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we always reach out to you when questions come up. It's funny you ended up being a copyright lawyer because, of course, of all the IPs to have the most copyright issues, it seems it's been Friday the 13th.
They've had a lot.
Yeah. It's kind of worked out. But yeah, I wanted to bring you on today, Larry, just to clarify a few things. I feel like a lot of times people are constantly asking me, like I actually know what I'm talking about in the world of copyright law, and I don't know what's going on. So there was a recent deal that happened with Jason Universe and Striker Entertainment, and that brought up a lot of questions because Striker Entertainment in their press release specifically mentioned Friday the 13th, the game. And the way it was italicized, it seemed like they were talking about the game that already exists. And when it comes to like Striker, they're mainly doing like merch related deals, right? They're kind of just a middle party that reaches out to other merch stores, things like that.
Yeah. Well, since the gun game is dead, I took that to mean there's going to be a new game, and they're just that's what they're talking about. That they're working on a new game. I don't see them doing merch on the old game that isn't sold anymore. I don't see a point in that.
Yeah, now you just got everyone a little bit more excited just saying that because
Look, obviously you're going to do a new game. I mean, it's not. I don't know. They haven't announced it, but obviously they're going to do it. It's like it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
They made millions of dollars after the old one. They're going to do another one.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for sure.
I mean, they're waiting for, the series to come out, so there's a little more attention in the Friday the 13th world.
Yeah. So you don't think that is actually related to the old game from 2017? You don't think they're actually going to casually go back and do merch for
who's going to buy merch on a game? I mean, I know there are fans out there who would, but no, that's not how it works.
If they even were to do merch, like let's say they did from the 2017 game, can they do specific characters like the original counselors that Gunn designed? Can they even go back and do things like that?
I don't, because I'm in the game, and I don't remember that I gave them merch rights.
Okay.
I don't. I mean, although and all those counselors are sort of based on real people,
right?
So. I mean, obviously you can go to them and make a deal. I don't see that happening. I just don't see that. Yeah. No one's buying counselor merch. I mean, come on, it's not happening.
I think the one character from the 2017 game, from Gunn's game, that could do well even now is probably Savini Jason, and I think that's even a little bit more.
But that doesn't require anything except doing any kind of Jason type of merch. And that's what I think Striker is doing. They're like, okay, we're going back, because for a long time they weren't licensing any new Friday the 13th related, figures or stuff. And Now they're like, okay, with the series coming in the fall, we're gonna, ramp up and start selling new Jason stuff and character stuff, and still waiting for that Shelley doll, but we'll see.
We all
One day.
are. We all are. Would happily buy one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting. If it is a new game, them actually saying Friday the 13th, the game was interesting to me because the one thing like Jason Universe doesn't really have is the trademark itself, right? Like they would have to work with New Line to use Friday the 13th. Yeah.
Okay, this is a really interesting question. New Line owns the trademark for movies.
Oh.
I don't think anyone has registered the trademark for other things. But they were done. But they did say trademark Warner Brothers. So I think, but that's what I think. It's no longer going to be Friday the 13th. It's going to be Jason Universe. It's going to sell as Jason Universe. That's what they're selling. That's why they're rebranding as Jason Universe. It's not going to be Friday the 13th.
Right. That's how I always took it as well. It's kind of just them looping around so they don't have to worry about getting that trademark. But
right, you can't call it the Friday 13th without. That's why the series is called Crystal Lake and not Friday 13th.
So Striker Entertainment, what they mainly do is outreach for merch deals and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But they did do when it came to Five Nights at Freddy's, they were the direct branch for the VR game. They kind of made that game happen. So in mentioning Friday the 13th, the game specifically, is there a chance that Stryker is like directly involved with trying to, reach out on a remaster? I got to bring up a remaster because everyone's been talking about that. That's what these rumors led to with Stryker Entertainment.
I don't know anything about that. I really think they would want to start from scratch, but I'm not in their heads, so I don't know.
Yeah. That's all I really had for Jason Universe because I didn't have a ton of questions there. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to clarify with that deal that you saw.
Just that people think that like the rights are owned separately by Victor and Horror Inc., and that's not the case. I mean, they've teamed up and they own 100% of the rights. So there's they have a partnership deal, and which is, I guess you would call the Jason Universe, and that's Horror Inc. and Victor, and so they can do whatever they want. All the characters, all the masks, all the Jasons, everything, but call it Friday the 13th. They have the right to do. I don't know how, whether or not the money is split evenly among everything, but they certainly, all the rights are in one place. So when anybody ever says, which I see that people go, oh, you can't do it or you can't do it, you can do whatever. They can do whatever they want, and that I know for a fact.
I did have actually one other question, sorry, because since New Line owns the trademark for Friday for movies, if you were to make a figure, like a Shelley figure, for example, could you use the Friday the 13th Part 3 like branding on there, or no? If Jason Universe were to do your figure?
I think you could say Jason Universe, Shelley from Friday the 13th Part 3. That's not a trademark use. That is a descriptor of who Shelley is.
But they couldn't actually put the logo itself on.
But it would say, usually I've seen I have some dolls and they say Friday the 13th on them, at the top. They wouldn't have that. And it says in the bottom, like Friday the 13th is a trademark of, New Line.
Okay, that's interesting. So they really could kind of just circle around everything and do their own merch run completely of all the characters.
Well, they own the right to do all this stuff in new movies, new shows. Whether they can, who owns the right to merch the characters from the existing movies, I don't know whether that deal they had allowed them to do that. Also, you still got to come to the actors and get their permission.
Okay.
Not Jason, but all the actors, you got to get their permission to do it.
Okay, then separate from Jason Universe, I did have a couple of questions about this new upcoming ASIM game called Summer Camp that is very similar to Guns F-13, where it's 1v7. The aesthetic is very similar. All the gameplay mechanics that we've heard of so far, you know, it's repairing a boat, it's repairing a car, it's calling the police, etc. Is it possible to like actually copyright gameplay mechanics and things of that nature, where if they were to cut it too close with this new game, where someone like Gun could step in and shut it down, or at least send a cease and desist
or sue for copyright infringement?
Yeah.
If the asymmetric games are there are a lot of them, and so and usually it's one very strong character against a number of 4 to 8 weaker characters, and the weaker characters have to do something to get out. But there is a concept in copyright, which is the selection and arrangement. So even if things aren't by themselves copyrightable, like fixing a car in a game, if you're like taking everything and it's the exact same thing, then it could be a copyright infringement. But you really got to, until the game comes out, it's impossible to make a determination.
So, and even if that was like the case, most likely it would end up being like a cease and desist, right? And then they could go and change a handful of things. And
well, it's not that easy to change like those kind of things, because that's built into the game. It's like that's difficult. It's not those are, you saw how with the game how hard it was just to like change a map or whatever. It's like these things are these things are not easy. It would be probably a big overhaul. Now, I don't know if the people who did summer camp, it's sort of a Kickstarter, right? So they're not super sophisticated, game makers, and they may go, well, the game's not existing, so I'll just take all those things and make our own game, and they may end up getting sued. I don't know. I hope not. They should talk to a lawyer.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice. I've heard a lot of feedback on that as well. It's like, why don't you go ahead and get legal counsel first? Like, why don't you talk to somebody and see where you're at? Because they say they're changing things, and you would think just some minor changes here and there would be enough where they'd be safe. But it is worth noting that, like, yeah, it's possible. Like, they could.
I mean, look how many games are sort of based on Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's just that's the gameplay. You have different classes and hit points and weaknesses and range and all these things, which have been built into the Dungeons and Dragons universe. But it exists in lots of games. Same with first-person shooters, the Call of Duty game. You have, it's like there's a swarm of enemies, and you can hide. You got to get ammo. You got to pick up, things that make you stronger. So
right, yeah, I think it's basic mechanics feel safe. We talked about it a little before we started. The Shadow of Mordor is what a lot of people have pointed to. The Nemesis mechanic, where antagonists from those games could remember previous battles and then react to such in future battles. That has been either patented or copyrighted, and now it's off limits basically to other games until 2036. So that is not that's a
very sophisticated game, and like this Summer Camp is not, and neither is Friday the 13th. They're not the kind of thing where it's like, oh, we've created something that's patentable.
Yeah. And it is that specific mechanic in Shadow of Mordor that they're with the Nemesis system. So I wanted to clarify on that too, because people have brought that up a lot. It's like, no, it's not the same thing. It's not simply the gameplay itself. It's that mechanic. They have mentioned in marketing Friday the 13th. Like they're paying homage to Friday the 13th. Like, if you're a fan of Friday, you're gonna like our game. How far can you go with that marketing? Can you say Friday the 13th specifically that you're paying homage to it, even if you're not using like the logos and whatnot?
Yeah, because comparison, you can, just like when you go, when Pepsi has the Pepsi Challenge and they go, we're better than Coke, right? They're mentioning Coke, but you understand they're not Coke, they're Pepsi. You're not. The question for trademark is whether you're confusing consumers into thinking you are the original game is sponsoring or associated with them, and they're like, no, this is our own game, but it's like that, but it's better, and that's fine.
Yeah, they've actually been saying specifically spiritual successor, and that seems fine too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. They're like, it's not a sequel. I mean, should be fine.
Okay. Because that so far,
people understand it's not run by Gun. It's not sponsored by them. It's its own thing. It's a Kickstarter. I think people get it.
yeah. That and what about it being called Summer Camp? Because originally it was called Slasher Volume 1 Summer Camp, before horror made a deal with Gun. So that has been brought up a lot too, is if using the actual name like that, if that's a fair game.
Summer Camp is the generic name. I mean, it's not Friday the 13th, so it's perfectly fine.
I don't know. Because really, everything we talked about here, I think, were the biggest concerns. Otherwise, I feel like they're in a pretty safe spot. I think it's pretty easy to change mechanics and make adjustments here and there, but still pay homage to the game. Now, really, the only thing I was worried about is, are they all original assets? So far, everything we've seen is extremely similar. I'm like, are we sure that's a fully original cabin? So as long as it's not stealing assets or truly stealing any code, they seem pretty safe.
The thing is, camp cabins look just the way they look.
Sure.
And the game is creating the cabins from the movie, and the movie used real cabins from a real place, a real camp. So It's not like they own it either. So anyone could use those cabins. It's not, they don't own it.
That's interesting. So you saying that. So it, technically speaking, like Packanack, or Higgins Haven, they could use those.
Well, Higgins Haven was built.
Oh, yeah.
But the original part 1 was not. I mean, but the barn is, they built the barn, but it's a barn. I mean, what are you going to do? It's a barn.
Yeah. But they couldn't call them, you couldn't call Packanack Lodge, right?
That would get you in trouble. And hopefully they're smart enough not to do that, because it's not. It should be something else, right? It should be, it should be, they can name them after, the directors of, Cunningham Lodge or,
sure.
That would be, make more sense as an homage.
That's interesting. I never thought about that of them, because I was talking about it that, like you said, a summer camp's a summer camp. That's whatever. But it's what made F-13 special is that every map had that centralized location that you knew and loved. It's interesting that they could kind of do something similar with locations that we already know, like Packanack.
To the extent, 1 and 2 were used in existing places, so they didn't create them, so they can't own them.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess same thing with part 4 with the Jarvis house.
And in part 3, the Higgins Haven cabin was not the same as the one in the movie, because they made it bigger.
Yeah, the bottom floor. Yeah, right. The sound stage. Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even consider that a possibility.
Oh, just wanted to, there's a big Friday 13th convention going on in August, first weekend of August. It's now at the Hilton LAX. It's all Friday 13th people. It's called Crystal Lake Nightmares, and follow Crystal Lake Nightmares on Facebook and IG, and come. I'll be there. So will people from every movie. Be a lot of fun. So if you're a fan of Friday the 13th, definitely come out.
Like I said before the interview, short and sweet. I don't want to take a bunch of Larry's time. He's a hardworking guy. He's doing a lot of things. I just had, there were a couple questions that kept coming up that I knew I couldn't clarify, and I knew he could. And give us a better idea of what is going to happen in the World of Jason universe, what can happen in the World of Jason universe, and then with Summer Camp, the types of things that they can do without getting in trouble. So I hope that maybe address some of your concerns, some of your questions, and we'll see what's coming next for both Jason universe and for Summer Camp. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. And of course, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.